from um, it is Paul Weisner. He's the senior director of retail industry solutions, and he talks a lot about just data, and as it relates to retail leaders and retail businesses. And what he says is that honestly, and if you want this report, I can send this to you. He in a nutshell, he says we suck at it, meaning that we we have so much data, but we don't use it properly. We don't go after it properly. We don't allow the data to inform our decisions. We just don't do it. And but what is data? What is data literacy? Let's talk about that for a second. Here's the one thing. Data literacy is the ability to read and understand and communicate your data. Right? You're like, okay, Steve, yeah, I get that. I get that. But here's the thing. You may get that intuitively, right? Intuitively. You may get that intuitively. And you may, on its face, say, okay, I get what data literacy kind of means. But when I think about data literacy, so when I got my undergrad in accounting, and we would do debits and credits, and then we would do trial balances, and we would do cost accounting, and we would do all these different things. And it was just like it got so monotonous. It just got the repetitive nature of looking at the data. But what I learned over time was that the data tells a story. It tells a story about a business. It tells a story about whether or not you are doing things properly. It tells a story whether or not you are leading your teams properly. I know you're like, really, Steve, profit and loss. It's not just the profit and loss piece, and it's not just the margins from a profitability standpoint. It is not just the cost of doing business. It actually should inform your decisions based off of results that you have generated. And then the great thing about about data literacy, is that when you see data that you don't like, when you don't see the results that you don't like, guess what? You can change them. You can change them. I'm not talking about any Enron stuff. I don't know how many of you remember Enron. Go ahead and give me a thumbs up if you remember the whole Enron stuff. I'm not talking about the marketing. I'm not talking about anything like that. When I say you can fix them, is that you can adjust your mindset. You can adjust your operations. You can adjust your team. Okay? I'm going to leave that one right there because we'll talk about that in a second. Maybe not next week, but the week after that when we talk about retention and analyzing your data as it relates to retention. But when we sit down and look at our data and we look at what it tells us, it tells us a story. It tells us of what we did and how we did it, right? But also it should tell us what do we need to do differently as we move forward. Can I just give you this? I'm gonna give you this real quick too. The strength of your data, and we'll talk about this here in a second too. But the strength of the results of your data is, and I know you're probably like, okay, Steve, is incumbent upon the strength of your team. It just really is. And the consistency of the data that you want to receive is incumbent upon the strength of your team. Then it's also incumbent upon the strength of your leadership. It just really is. It just really is. I know I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, I talked about inflation. And I gave you really the kind of the inflation for dummies perspective, because we hear so much about inflation, this, inflation, that, and I get it. It's very impactful. But at the end of the day, inflation is all about a person's propensity to actually spend. Do I want to spend this $5, this $10 in my pocket? Do I? If I don't want to spend it, guess what? Then inflation is going up. And I get the cost of things are going up, but if I am not willing to actually spend that money, there are reasons and rationales around why I want to do that. So I just gave you it's the same way. I just gave you the inflation for dummies perspective, but it's the same way when you look at your data. People are making decisions, right? And you can actually impact those decisions with your assortment, with your team engagement, right? with how friendly your team is, right? Your parking lot, don't get me started about parking lots. How clean, how clean. I was just up in Virginia the other week and doing a mall assessment, and man, oh man, that mall was horrendous. Anyway, I won't even get to that. I'm gonna move forward. That's a whole nother story. All right. So know one thing: data literacy is the ability to read and understand and communicate your data. I just want to make sure I go and connect with everybody. Hey, how are you doing, Steven? So this is good. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, sir. Please send when we send a report, I will do that. In special education and with aggressive behavior, we relied on data 100%. For success and safety of others and how we changed our behavior. Okay. You know, Christine, when you just said change your behavior, it just immediately impacted me because that's exactly, when you look at the results, that's exactly what you want to see happen. Either you maintain the behaviors, the positive behaviors that you're executing on based on the information, or you actually have to change the behavior in order to get a different result. The data is the data, right? It's the behavior. And people get so fixated on just like, oh, well, I'm not making sales. Well, why aren't you making sales? Okay. I got a whole nother thing. Was it this week? No, it's not this week. When I talk about store visits, I'm going to be talking about store visits, how to have a successful store visit, and then also how to receive a successful store visit. Part of that, of what I'm going to, and I'll just give this to you right now, the table stakes is that you make payroll and that you hit your sales number. I know, well, there's so many other things that are impacted this, and I get it, but there's a way to do it. You can make your sales and you can make your payroll. You can do it. I know you can. I believe in you. Okay. All right. Let me keep it going. Christopher, this is good. Sometimes as leaders, we only give data to leadership level, but not the ones that are actually driving results. Christopher, I love you, man. I love you, dude. You are just all in my wheelhouse. And then Steven says, just like an individual needs to know who they are, an organization needs to know their data, right? And their data is the ethos of who they are. And then once they understand their data, then they can kind of create a culture that actually will give them the data that they want, right? They can give the culture will feed the data that they want to receive. Okay, I got to keep it going. You guys are trying to keep me here all day, and I can't do it. So here's the one thing you want to ask. Okay. Sources of data, and I always do this. I always say I'm going to give you one thing, and I give you two. I'm going to give you at least two. Sources of data. How often do I read them? And what data does my boss look at and why? All right, I got to get a sip of. This last one, that's game changing for you. Those of you right there, that's like, listen to me, this is free of charge. I'm going to send you an invoice just for that one right there. Because a lot of people don't understand the importance of that last one. We can talk about the sources and how often do you read it. But that last one right there, what data does your boss or your boss's boss, like, you know, and things do they really look at? Do they really hold close to their vest? That they're constantly talking about on visits, right? I had a couple of things as it relates, because it changed from store to store, from company to company, and also changed from store to store. But there are a couple of things, right, that I always, my team always knew that I was focused in on, and they were very proactive in giving me that data, not just on visits, but like, you know, as the data kind of came out, they would send it up to me, and also not just the results, because I could read it myself, but the commentary around the result was more important to me than the actual data itself. Get that, please. Please get that. Please get that right there. The data in and of itself is great. And this is what I'm talking about, literacy, Being able to read the data and understand the commentary that you need to actually have as it relates to the data is extremely important. This is when we talk about being able to speak to your business, right? Quick story. And I think I've told this story several times. I was a store manager, and we would get the corporate visits, and they would come into my stores. We crush it. Store was rock solid, but then they would go over to my buddy's store. I just call him Jim. And they're, you know how HR, you know how HQ rolls. They don't roll with just two people. If you're going to be in that corporate jet, it's at least like seven people, right? Buyers, HR people, all these people, right? So at least seven people deep. So they go over to my buddy's gym store, and they're staying like the whole afternoon. And I'm like, dude, yo. At first, initially, I thought Jim was in trouble, but guess what? Jim had data literacy down pat. Like, he had an opinion. We talk about that in our what do we call our mastermind program, which is our leadership playbook, and we talk about having an opinion. Most leaders in retail don't have an opinion, an informed opinion, and valued opinion, right? And so Jim had a valued opinion, and so they spent all this time at his store because he would talk about data till it was blue in the face, data on retention, data on competition, right? All these different things that his boss was that was top of mind for his boss and his boss's boss and even the CEO. So I spent 2 days with Jim. If you have a gym in your market, you need to go, or you need to go spend a day or two with that gym and learn some things around how they see the business and how they're able to communicate their business. And this is why I said that last piece around data. What data does your boss look at, and why is extremely important. The sources of data, we have so much data that is out there that we can actually look at to we're blue in the face. And I'm not going to go into all those pieces. I just wanted you to kind of think about the different sources of data that you have. Right, we have it all on our phone. Most companies nowadays, you can get all your financials and everything right on your phone. You break down for all your department sales, break down for all your categories, all of those different things as well. How often are you looking at that? Do you look at it just after every week? Are you looking at it based on a daily perspective? Are you looking at it from a seasonality standpoint? Are you looking at it with just before your boss walks in the store so that you know? I'm sorry, I don't mean to tell on anybody, but I know that's what happens, right? You can listen to me. I know when the person just looked at their numbers. Whenever I walked into one of their stores, I knew. Like, you don't. Here's why. Because when you know your data, you're able to not just tell me, how much you beat sales by. You're able to tell me why, because you've actually done the work, right? You've actually gone deeper in understanding the why. I never have my team just give me the number. Listen to me, I get it. The numbers are the number, but it's the why. This is the data literacy part, the ability to be able to read your numbers and then have an informed opinion. And an informed opinion doesn't necessarily mean you're right. Doesn't necessarily mean that everything that you talk about relative to your numbers or even the competition is 100% going to happen or is going to right. But you actually have to have an opinion and a perspective on it. You have to. You have to. Because if I'm a we talk about it all the time. Is that HQ get in the stores, get in the stores, get in the stores. When they come in the stores and all we do is complain. Right, but we don't give them any information that they can possibly use to invoke that invokes change. Right, we have to give them something. Right, are they gonna listen to all of it? Probably not. Right, but there are different things that that we can learn. So I keep saying I got all of this stuff coming. Listen to me. I have content for years around retail leadership, and it's ridiculous. And we have it's actually going to be in our podcast episode for this upcoming season, and it's entitled "Everything Works at Home Office." I know everybody's kind of like clapping and yelling and screaming when I said that, but here's how I'm going to approach it. I'm going to approach it in the context of like, what can home office learn from stores, and what can stores learn from home office? right? Because we know that HQ needs to get into stores, and a lot of them are getting into stores. But we actually have to have data and actually have to have information to actually help them do their job better, right? My interview from store manager to district manager with Target. I actually interviewed with Greg Steinhoff, an amazing leader at the time. And one of the things that he would tell me, and this is all for all of you who are either in single leadership or store leadership, but also mainly for multi-unit leadership, is that he said, Steve, it's not important that just one of your stores has an issue. Meaning that you all have that one store who are multi-unit leaders, all have that one store that complains about everything, right? Good, bad, or indifferent. They do. They just complain about everything. I always want to keep it real with you. They always complain about everything. But now, if it's Jim, right, that data literacy person, that's amazing. They're complaining about something, and then like 2 or 3 people. Basically, what he said is that it's important for you to actually have a trend for a problem or for an issue, and when you're able to actually say it's multitude of stores. And then if you have a peer that actually has the same issue, now those are the things that you want to bubble up. That's when change really becomes important to HQ. It's not just about one store missing payroll and they need extra payroll. It's just not. It's just not. It is a collective issue that your stores have that will actually cause corporate to move the needle on that. We have to understand that aspect as well too. All right. Okay. Here's the thing. We just talked about all of this stuff over data literacy. We're going to continue with the last part. But if you haven't gotten your ticket yet for Rise Up Retail Summit, right, you are missing the boat. I had the pleasure of kicking it off last week. Me and my good friend Dean. Dean crushed it. And if you are having an issue with your leadership, if you're looking for a path to understanding how to lead better, right? I don't know how many conferences are out there in the retail sphere. I can probably count on my hands, which is one, that is dedicated to the leadership development, personal and professional development for retail leaders. And this is this Rise Up Retail Summit. So you got to make sure you go ahead and get your ticket. I'll make sure I put if April, if you're still in the audience, if you want to put a link in the comments. If not, I will make sure that I put a link in the comments as well too. But you could always go to the URL that's scrolling, right there, and there's going to definitely be a prayer right at the front page, a way for you to go ahead and sign up for that conference as well too. Every Thursday, 11 a.m. On LinkedIn, we do an audio room, and they have been amazing opportunities. Sometimes I actually use the information or the opportunity to like record the actual podcast in there. Sometimes I don't. This week, I actually did this. This is one of my very first podcast episodes or topics, probably back in 2017, mentorship versus sponsorship, and I've never brought it up again. And so I wanted to kind of refresh it. And it talks about the difference, and do you need both to succeed? I'm not gonna give you the answer to that. You can give me the answer to that. You let me know that. You let me know on Thursday. But I want to see you in the audience on Thursday at 11 a.m. And that's specifically and solely on LinkedIn audio. All right. Last thing we want to do is we're going to do one thing, and I'm going to let you go and get to your day. What time is it? It's 3. It's not that bad. Okay. I'm not that bad. I'm not that bad. Identify, learn, and teach. Okay. I keep saying one thing. I can't give you just one thing, man. It's just not in my mentality to I was I won't say I was the worst with giving visit notes. I always had to give you. I wasn't the leader that like always felt compelled. I got to give you notes, right? And when I do the episode around how to do a store visit and how to and also how to be the person that receives the store visit, we're going to be talking about the 3 level of notes that I often would give my team, and every store potentially had different levels of information that I would provide for them. So there we go. There's that. So do one thing: identify, learn, and teach. So when I say identify, you have to identify one the gaps in your leadership around your ability or aptitude. I hate to use that word, but it is just true to be able to understand your financial statements, and it is okay if you don't know. One of the things that always got on my nerves um, was when I worked for a couple of companies, and well, it was really just one, and they would say, you know, that person needed to understand their financial statements before they went to the next level, but didn't do anything about it. Right? Right? They would put these constraints, but they didn't have anything in place to actually help that person overcome that same opportunity that is hindering them from moving to the next level. Does that make sense? None of it does. That does it just really got underneath my skin. Oh, well, you need to have finance. Well, you don't have anything in place to actually teach them, right? And meaning that they are stretched so thin relative from a capacity standpoint, right? They have to, exude additional information and brain power, and not brain power, manpower, to actually go in and actually learn. So we would implement. I would take a gym, and almost in every market I had a gym, and his or her store was killer. So what we would do was that they would teach classes on financial literacy, right? They would teach classes on how to help and understand your financial statements, right? This was above and beyond. This is above and beyond any training that the corporations would provide. I wanted my teams, I wanted my people, when they went into these interview processes, they were dialed in and knew their numbers and actually be able to have commentary on it. So you as a leader, first of all, you have to identify what you don't know. Then you have to learn. And then once you learn, once you are adept at it, you have to teach your team. I get so bent out of shape when I hear um, about a leader who doesn't want to teach, or there's somebody within their team. They don't want to teach somebody something, or they're withholding information. Right? That's a fixed mindset. Right? That's a scarcity mindset, where they're going to hold on to their information, hold on to their ability to teach, coach, and train around financial literacy, around data literacy, around how to read and understand retention numbers. You can't do that as a leader. You have to be giving. You have to teach your team, teach, coach, and train them on how to actually become better leaders. And part of that is by you giving away of yourself. When I left retail, it was the hardest. It was literally probably number top 2 or 3 hardest things I've ever had to do in my life. But I love what I'm doing right now. Absolutely love it. Wouldn't change it. I am becoming more and more of myself. I'm able to give so much more of myself than I was as a retail leader. So much information up here that sometimes I feel like I'm gonna explode. But when I was leaving, one of the things that I did just overtly, I always gave a lot of myself, but I turned it up a notch. I literally turned it up probably, 10, 20 times. I mean, every store I went into, I gave all of myself. I gave even more so. When I saw a leader that was struggling with something, pulled him to the side. We talked, we chatted. I mean, my typical visits in a store were probably about an hour, maybe hour and a half, if that. They were 2.5 hours, maybe 3, just because I was just giving so much more of myself, because I knew that I wasn't going to have a team anymore per se, right? But my challenge to you is, what are you doing right now? How much of this are you giving of yourself right now? How are you doing this? What does it look like for you as a retail leader? Where are you at right now with your understanding of what it is from a data literacy, where you stand. Where does your team stand? I was gonna roll a couple comments. This is when I would teach myself 100%. We need Steve to to go into our guest speaker at all our leadership conferences. Christopher, thank you so much. I appreciate that, and I receive that in the name of Jesus. I received that. This is how I want to be. Yeah, and I when we want to give, when we accept this beautiful burden of being a leader, there is a lot of level of responsibility that comes along with it, and a lot of times we become remiss because we get so caught up in the role, and we get so caught up in people, you know, coming to us as the leader, and we get so caught up and and we forget that people are choosing to be led by us. And when we start talking about this topic that we're discussing today, and then we're going to talk about next week, this idea about data literacy, it becomes even more important for you to share what you know, right? It becomes even more important for you to learn what are the issues or financial statements and metrics that your boss will listen to or read that are going to be so important for you to understand and be able to communicate and articulate to your team. It's extremely important. Your team has to be down in, and they need to know this stuff. And you, as a leader, it is your responsibility. It is your responsibility. I'm laughing because another quote that I'm probably, and I'm going to use it this Saturday. So if you hear it now, you're probably going to see it again this Saturday morning. Well, I had a boss that used to always say this, and it just got under my skin so much that I started using it for my team. It's not your fault, but it's your problem. Sharon's gonna. She always gets on me because I share too much. I always give away too much. It's not your fault, but it's your problem. Meaning that whenever you have a team or the circumstances that are around you, if you inherit a team, or if the results are the results, and based on inflation, based on poor traffic count, based on poor sell through or something, listen to me. It's not your fault. I get it. But at the end of the day, it's your problem. You're the leader. You signed up for it. If you don't want the responsibility, go back doing something else. It's a tough saying. It is a tough saying, but it's so true. It's not your fault, but it's your problem, meaning that you have the ability and capacity to fix it. All right, that's my quote for this Saturday, and you guys have already heard it, and I still need you to go in on Saturday.